Hello, this is Paul from Wheel of Games. I was wanting to put out my prediction video for episode 5, Blood Calls Blood, from Amazon and Sony's Wheel of Time before everything came out tomorrow, because pretty much every single episode has been dropping at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays for me, which is extremely beneficial because it lets me be able to put out these videos a little bit early. If you guys like my content or anything like that, please feel free to subscribe or like or anything like that. You can also follow me on Twitch if you're interested. I stream on there weekdays between Monday and Friday from about 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. And I just discuss Wheel of Time, play games, goof around, and work on a card game that I've been working on for years. So if you guys are interested, please feel free to join in. But without further ado, I'd like to get to my predictions for episode 5, and let's get started. So the first thing that I want to bring up is the order that I'm going to list things is going to be from least important to most important, at least in terms of overall, like, how much girth we're going to get in the story. So I believe, and I'm not going to try to go through specific episode order and how everything is laid out, but I will say that I'll mention who's going to get the cold open at the when I get to their section. So least important, and while it may surprise some of you, I believe that the least important in terms of this episode, and the least, and by that I mean least amount of information given, context-wise, is going to be the Aes Sedai camp with Nynaeve and Moiraine and Lan. Mainly because I believe that we got a good chunk of story from them in the last episode. And while seeing interactions between Nynaeve and Lan is fantastic, it's not necessarily, a good flow to prioritize only these two characters for the remainder of the story. We have another, 6 characters almost. Like, we have Moiraine, which we want to get some more information about. We have the boys, Rand and Matt. We have Egwene and Perrin, and then we also have Tom, who's been introduced as well. So between all these characters, we need to get at least a little bit more screen time for each of the others, because if you look at the overall runtime in the last episode, it really seemed like we favored the Aes Sedai camp. Granted, there was a lot of action there was a lot of cool stuff, but I think that this is going to be a much more somber tone in terms of the Aes Sedai camp. I know for a fact, based on the previews, that we have to be getting the funeral sequence with Steppen and the ring for his Aes Sedai and all of that. That beautiful, scrolling aerial shot where we got to see all the graves. I think that that's going to be pretty much the start of the episode, if not, the first segment we go to after the cold open. So I do believe that because of the title of the episode, I'm going to make some assumptions for a few of the things. So one, the episode is called Blood Calls Blood. So we've only had a few references to blood in the story. The only references that we've had to blood are involving the two rivers, with the old blood runs strong there. So when we're dealing with that, I'm believing that we're going to have a very Two Rivers centric chapter. I don't think we're going to get Nynaeve's backstory. I don't think that we're going to get, a bunch of information from Lan either. I think that when it comes down to it, we are probably going to get Lan and Moiraine in the funeral garb during the funeral. And knowing that, the 6th episode is called The Flame of Tar Valon, which is another term for Amyrlin's Seat, which would mean that they get to Tar Valon, possibly in episode 6. I don't think that we are going to get much more past the funeral, because now those characters have to travel to Tar Valon, which Liandrin blatantly stated in the last episode that they were 100 plus miles away from Tar Valon. They weren't going to be able to maintain shielding Loghain. And that was her justification for wanting to gentle him, which they did by the end of the episode. But I will say that when it comes to the term Blood Calls Blood, I'm going to start referencing Book 2. In Book 2, Padan Fain is captured in Fal Dara Keep and is rescued in a way, or broken out, by Trollocs that invade the Fal Dara Keep. And on the walls is written in the Trolloc script in blood, Blood Calls Blood, and that's translated by Varen. But during this instance, we have Rand scrubbing the walls because Padan Fain left a specific message for him, and Liandrin attempts to compel Rand, and it's the first instance that we find out that Liandrin is a dark friend. At least it's the first clue that she's a dark friend. She's not out and out as a dark friend until about halfway through, or about a third of the way through book 2, because she does some other nefarious things, which I'll also get to as a tiny bit of prediction for like a cliffhanger type thing. But what I will say is that Liandrin, the only reference that I can bring up when it comes to Blood Calls Blood is the fact that Liandrin was in the room where that script was written on the walls, and that she's potentially a dark friend. And Blood Calls Blood is actually an oath taken, or like a poem that's written by Trollocs. So again, it's probably not going to be put in that context, but if the writers and if the showrunner are trying to like nudge on some nostalgia strings or pull on some like, hey, Easter eggs for the readers, then that would be kind of cool. So we may get some interaction between Liandrin and Moiraine, with Liandrin, showing that she is out and out as a dark friend, or maybe she will not be outed as a dark friend in this sense, but maybe she'll be outed as a dark friend to the viewers, not necessarily the companions. So aside from that, we move on to the second half of the story, or the second third of the story, which I believe is going to be Perrin and Egwene. I think that we are going to get more traveling with the Tinkers, but I think that this is going to be the point where Perrin elects to leave, because like the way that the Tinkers have it set up, it doesn't seem to make sense. Because the Tinkers are just supposed to travel, and when they brought them up in the episode, the Tinkers blatantly stated we're heading east to Tar Valon. Like, they just said we're going to Tar Valon. So, logically, you have two answers. The first is that they travel with the Tinkers all the way to Tar Valon, or the second one is that the White Cloaks invade the Tinker camp, and Perrin has to choose whether he's going to, do the whole axe or hammer thing, because we have seen Perrin with an axe, and we have seen Perrin with a hammer. Hammer was very brief. He hit a wheel one time, and he hit, a Tinker. It was either a Tinker or it was Layla. It was one or the other that he was hitting with the hammer in the dream sequence. So Perrin has held both weapons in this story so far, but I think that it's either going to have to play out where the Tinker camp gets invaded by White Cloaks because Valda notices Perrin and Egwene and gets extremely intrigued because they were with that lady, and Valda pointed out that he doesn't forget faces. So a whole thing that's going on there is that Valda may take that as an incentive, that the two are being suspicious. He may try to detain them. They may try to run. Aram may try to go with them. Aram probably gets hit, knocked out, and that's why he's in the fetal position in the trailer shot, and they're getting surrounded by White Cloaks, and this may be where Perrin and Egwene have to go through questioning through Emin Valda. And this also may be where Egwene gets to flex her whole, not everything I'm saying is the truth that you want to hear. This could be a first emulation of her doing that in the story, because it's something that she does later on in the books. As the books progress, the girls start to try to hold to the three oaths, even though they're not bound by them. And Egwene holds that extremely significantly as like a big deal for her. So I think that that's going to either be where we end on a cliffhanger, or I can't really see how they get out of it, though, because unless we're going to get the rescue sequence that happened in the books between Moiraine, Lan, and Nynaeve, which doesn't make sense now that they're with a funeral procession heading to Tar Valon with the Aes Sedai, and it looks like the reunion between Nynaeve and Egwene happens in Tar Valon. So I don't think that we're going to get the rescue sequence, so I don't exactly see how they're going to get out of it. The only thing I can think of is that when the White Cloaks come after them, the wolves are going to harry away the White Cloaks, and this may be where we get the potential death of Hopper. Even though we haven't had Hopper named, even though we haven't had Elias as a guide or any of that stuff, I think that that's going to be something that happens. Like, the White Cloaks are going to chase after them, the wolves are going to attack the White Cloaks, and the White Cloaks are going to run. Because, again, the questioners pointed out, we are not made for battle. We are made for other higher purposes. Oh, we love that guy. We just love to hate him so much. But anyway, so what I think the most significant part of the story is going to be is actually Mat and Rand and Tom. And I think that it's going to be Mat with the dagger almost 100%. The dagger fuels Padan Fain in the books. The dagger is the motivation that Matt has and Rand has to do a lot of things in book 2. And the thing is that Blood Calls Blood is directly from the rescuing of Padan Fain, who steals the dagger at the same time from Matt and causes Matt to get super sick in the books in book 2. So I think that this Blood Calls Blood is going to be a reference mainly to Matt and Rand on the run, because Tom is now, gone, because it looks like he, potentially fell in battle with the Myrddraal. We know that that's not happening due to the show having Alexander William, I think is his name, that's playing Tom. He was on set filming more episodes, which means he did not die in that battle with the Fade. But it also makes sense because the Fade has a mission. The Fade wants to kill the boys. The Fade take the boys. The Fade does not want to kill Tom, and just fighting Tom doesn't make sense. It could just disappear and try to chase the boys because they got away. But I think that we're going to get Rand and Matt going through their travels, like what happens in Eye of the World. I think that we're going to have to see them try to stick through. I think Rand's going to be paranoid that Matt is going mad. I think that we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff like that where it's the dagger that is corrupting Matt is going to, take its full effect and make itself really, really bad. And this is also something that I wanted to potentially analyze, is that I don't know when we're going to place Loial in the story. So in my opinion, there's like 3 potential options. The first is, and the most cop-out one, is that the Ogier are on good terms with the Amyrlin in Tar Valon. So when, and Loial is not going to be a hasty Ogier. He's going to be a guide assigned by the Amyrlin seat to the group out of Tar Valon to go through the ways. I think that could potentially happen. The second option is that Loial is not introduced until they try to go in the ways, and they're trying to find the Waygate, and Loial guides them to it, and they stumble across him after the whole group is together. But again, this doesn't make sense with the trailer shots, because again, trailer shots are not canon, they're not concrete, but when you see the trailer shots, it's just the 6 of them walking towards the Waygate. So the third option is that they omitted Loial from the promotional photos, and Loial is encountered by Rand and Matt, and for some reason, the steading that they may stumble across is subsiding Matt's condition. And that could be where we get introduced to Loial. But I'm not sure. That's the problem, is that where they place Loial in the story, I'm hoping that we get to see him in episode 5. But if we don't get to see him in episode 5, then so be it. I'm sure the showrunners have a decent thing, but my main, what I think is going to be the bulk, and why I can't make a ton of predictions, is I don't know exactly what they're going to do in this episode with Matt and Rand, but I want it to be Matt and Rand centric. I want the cold open to be Matt in the 2 rivers. Like I mentioned before, I'm hoping that we eventually get to where each of the Emond's Field 5 get a cold open. We already got one with Nynaeve. I want to see one with Matt in this episode. The Flame of Tar Valon would be interesting if we did a Egwene's flashback, because that would be foreshadowing, and it would also let us see that whole sequence with her rising up out of the water in the pool with the dye. I think that would make perfect sense because it would just be poetic. Then the darkness along the ways could be Perrin's, because it's Perrin encountering his demons and trying to get past them. If he started encountering his wolf senses, then he would be able to see better for them. And you could make a comment where Loial blatantly points out, I should be able to see better. How come you can see better? Like, that type of stuff would be a good way to bring that up. And then the 8th episode, which we don't know the name of, is possibly going to be Rand's flashback. And I'm hoping that we get a flashback in episode 8 with Rand doing the fever dream sequence with Tam, and that's where we get that, flashback to the blood snow, and Rand channels inherently as like a way to give his father stamina or something like that, and that could potentially be the like cold open sequences that I'm hoping for. Now granted, if it doesn't happen in this episode, then my hopes and fears are dashed, and whatever, I deal with it. But the point is that the only other take that you can take with Blood Calls Blood even though it wouldn't make any contextual sense, would be if we got the scene of the blood snow in this episode, which would not make sense, but it is a reference to the word blood. So in terms of the show itself, we've only had a few references to blood. We've had the old blood, we've had the blood snow that the readers know about because of the Aiel War, and we have the Blood Calls Blood from the books, which is the blatant title of the episode. So I'm hoping that this one is going to be a little more shadow-centric, possibly the boys using whatever clever means they can to get away from the Trollocs, but this may also be the first test where Rand and Mat have to find a way to get away on their own, because they don't have a guide. This is and they had no guide when they were through the mountains and they were bickering. Now they're with each other. Rand has suspicions of Mat, that he's going mad and all these other things. So I'm hoping that we get a big beefy episode with Rand and Mat and their kind of bromance, and seeing how Rand can stabilize Mat, because Mat's going mad from the dagger, which he should not have taken, and he totally did because he's dumb. But anyway, no, Mat's a great character. But either way, if you enjoy my content, please feel free to like and subscribe if you made it this far. I appreciate it. You can also, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm on Twitch, and I will see you guys later. Hopefully the episode is going to be fantastic and have as much of an impact as the mid-season finale did. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.